My family didn't fight or disown me, they just left me off the guest list. I'm Madison Lane, a 3-year-old tech entrepreneur from Seattle, and I thought I'd left the small-town shadows of Georgia behind. But when my brother Ethan texted about Mom's 60th birthday dinner at Patterson's Steakhouse, his words hit like a quiet blade. Just for close family. Close family. Without me. I stared at my phone. The sting of exclusion sharper than any argument. No yelling, no accusations, just silence that screamed I didn't belong. I'm the one who built a logistics empire from a cracked laptop, yet my own blood saw me as a stranger. If you've ever felt erased by those you love, stick around. This story's for you. Hit subscribe if you're ready for a tale of standing tall when the world tries to shrink you. I was 21 when I left Georgia, carrying nothing but a laptop with a cracked hinge, 2 worn suitcases, and a one-way ticket to Seattle. My hometown, nestled in the humid embrace of southern pines, was a place where family was supposed to mean everything. Sunday dinners, church potlucks, and unspoken loyalties. But when I told my parents I was leaving, my father didn't look up from his coffee. My mother handed me a tuna sandwich on rye. No note, no hug. It was enough, I told myself, as I boarded the plane, my dreams heavier than my bags. Seattle was a different world, cold, fast, and unforgiving. I rented a shoebox studio above a deli that blasted onion fumes at 4 a.m., slept on a borrowed futon, and waited tables to pay for night classes in data modeling. My days were a grind of bus terminals, laundromats, and code scribbled on napkins, each line a step towards something bigger. The rent was always due yesterday, but I worked like it was my last chance, because most days, it felt like it was. Back home, my sister Jenna stayed. She married Kyle, a church-going guy with a strong chin and a quiet smile, the kind of man our town called solid. They had their first son when she was 25, another 2 years later. I sent onesies, board books, Target gift cards, small gestures to bridge the 2,500 miles between us. Mom would text a polite, "Thank you," but Jenna's replies were rare, her silence louder than words. I tried to visit one Christmas, picturing a warm reunion, but they said the boys had RSV, so I stayed away. I told myself it was just bad timing. At 28, I co-founded CoreMap, a logistics tech startup, with a professor and a truck driver I met through a friend. We built our first routing model on borrowed servers and grit. It crashed constantly, but when it worked, it saved a retailer $40,000 in fuel in a single quarter. TechCrunch noticed. Investors called. Mayors wanted demos. My world in Seattle was loud with possibility, but back in Georgia, I was still the one who does something with computers. Jenna's divorce hit hard. She didn't tell me directly, Mom did, in a hushed phone call. Her car payments had lapsed, her credit was shot, and she was drowning. I wired $8,000 that night, no questions asked. No one said thank you. Not Mom, not Jenna. A month later, I saw Jenna's Facebook post, a photo of her car, license plate gleaming, with the caption, "Starting fresh, 1 mile at a time. God is good." I knew then something had shifted, not in me, but in them. They hadn't disowned me, they'd erased me, piece by quiet piece. The gifts, the money, the visits I tried to make, they were gestures to a family who'd already decided I was too different, too far gone. I didn't beg for their approval, but the silence stung deeper than I expected. It wasn't just distance, it was a wall, built brick by the people I'd spent my life trying to hold close. Yet I kept building in Seattle, coding late into the night, chasing a dream they couldn't see. I wasn't running from them, I was running toward me. The sting of my brother's text lingered, but it was Jenna's Facebook post that cut deeper. On Thursday morning, as I sipped coffee in my Seattle office, Her post popped up on my feed, a photo of Mom, radiant with gold balloons framing her smile, captioned, "Can't wait to celebrate this beautiful woman this Saturday. Family is everything." I froze, my thumb hovering over the screen. 38 comments poured in within an hour, cousins, church friends, neighbors, all buzzing with excitement. "So proud of her," one wrote. "All the sisters together again," another chimed. Debbie was bringing lemon cake. I scrolled, searching for my name. A hint, a whisper of my existence. Nothing. Not a single wish Madison could be here. I wasn't forgotten, I was erased. Forgetting is an accident, a slip of the mind. Erasure is a choice, deliberate and sharp, like a blade slicing through years of shared history. My chest tightened, not with anger, but with a hollow ache that felt heavier than rage. In Georgia, family was supposed to be sacred, a tapestry of Sunday suppers and front porch stories woven tight by tradition. I'd left that world at 21, chasing a dream my small town couldn't hold. I built CoreMap, a tech company that turned chaos into efficiency, saving cities and businesses millions. But to them, I was just Madison who does something with computers. I'd sent gifts for Jenna's boys, wired money when her car was nearly repossessed, and called Mom every birthday. Yet, their silence grew louder with every milestone I hit. The Facebook post wasn't just an oversight, it was a public declaration that I didn't belong. Jenna, my sister, 2 years younger, had stayed in our hometown, married young, and lived the life they understood. I was the outlier, the one who'd traded pine-scented air for Seattle's steel and ambition. They didn't resent my success, they simply didn't see it. To them, I was a ghost, haunting the edges of their perfect family portrait. I sat there, staring at my phone, the Seattle skyline gray and indifferent outside my window. The comments kept coming: laughter, love, plans for Mom's big day at Patterson's Steakhouse. My absence wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. I'd spent years building bridges, gifts, calls, money, only to watch them burn without a word. The pain wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet, like a door closing while you're still in the room. I could have called Jenna, demanded answers, or let the hurt fester. Instead, I opened my laptop and booked a flight to Georgia. Not out of spite, not to crash their party, but because I needed them to see me, not the girl they remembered, but the woman I'd become. I wasn't asking for a seat at their table. I was done begging for scraps of their approval. I just wanted them to look at me, really look, and know I hadn't disappeared. The decision felt like a spark in the dark. I packed my navy suit, pressed it crisp, and tucked an envelope into my bag, 2 first-class tickets to Alaska. A dream Mom had mentioned once over tea, 30 years ago. I remembered her words, her wistful talk of the northern lights, and I'd held on to them like a keepsake. If they wouldn't invite me, I'd show up anyway. Not to disrupt, but to stand in my truth. Georgia's air hit me like a memory when I landed: pine, grass, and the weight of unspoken expectations. I checked into a modest hotel near the town limits, a no-frills place with a clean bed and a lamp that worked. I didn't need fanfare. I needed clarity. As I steamed my suit and answered work emails, the envelope sat on the nightstand. A quiet promise. I wasn't going to let their silence write my story, not this time. I was ready to walk into that steakhouse and let my presence speak louder than their absence ever could. The plane touched down in Georgia, and the familiar scent of pine and fresh-cut grass flooded my senses, pulling me back to a place I'd left behind but never fully escaped. I wasn't here to fight or beg for a place at the table, I just needed them to see me. I checked into a modest hotel outside town, a quiet spot with a clean bed and a flickering lamp. My navy suit hung, pressed and ready, and on the nightstand sat a white envelope, unmarked, holding 2 first-class tickets to Alaska. Mom had mentioned the Northern Lights once, decades ago, over a cracked mug of store-brand tea. I'd carried that memory like a keepsake, and now it was my offering not to win them over, but to remind them I'd never stopped listening. As I steamed my suit and answered a few work emails, my resolve hardened. I wasn't crashing Mom's 60th birthday at Patterson's Steakhouse to make a scene. I was showing up to be seen. The steakhouse hadn't changed since my high school graduation dinner. Same brown awning, same host with a crisp pocket, square, same piano cover looping softly in the background. I arrived just after 7 p.m., my heels clicking against the polished floor. The hostess hesitated when I gave my name, her eyes flickering to the guest list before gesturing toward the back room. Laughter spilled out first, silverware clinking, glasses tapping, the warm hum of a family I wasn't part of. Then I stepped in. The room didn't freeze all at once. It slowed in fragments. A cousin glanced up. An uncle paused mid-bite, and the chatter dimmed to a tense hum. Mom sat at the center of the long table, glowing in royal blue, surrounded by cousins, neighbors, and old friends. Dad was beside her, arms crossed, looking like he'd stepped out of an old portrait. Jenna was to her left, her boys fidgeting with sugar-high energy. And at the far end, near the window, sat Nathan, Jenna's boyfriend, watching quietly. I walked straight to Mom, steady and unhurried, ignoring the weight of every stare. I placed the envelope gently in front of her. "Happy birthday, Mom," I said, my voice soft but clear. "I hope it's as beautiful as you are." Her eyes widened, confusion flickering as she lifted the envelope, her fingers trembling slightly. She opened it, and her breath caught when she saw the tickets. "Alaska," she whispered, her voice barely audible, like she was afraid the word might vanish. I nodded. "You said you'd never been. I thought it was time." The room was silent now, heavy with something unspoken. Dad broke it, his voice loud and edged with a familiar smirk. "Well, look who decided to join us. Still love making an entrance, don't you?" His words were meant to sting, to pull me back to the girl he thought I was, but I didn't flinch. I'd spent years building something stronger than his sarcasm. The tension held, thick and electric, until Nathan stood. Not abruptly, not with drama, but with a quiet resolve that shifted the air. He straightened his collar and looked straight at Dad. "She didn't make this about herself," he said, his voice steady, cutting through the silence. "You did." Heads turned, some toward me, some toward Jenna, whose face paled. Nathan didn't waver. "That's Madison Lane, co-founder and COO of Core Map, one of the fastest-growing AI logistics companies on the West Coast. She's not just impressive, she's respected. She's fair, and she's the reason I took this job." He glanced at Jenna, then back at the room. "I applied months ago, before I knew who she was. When I realized, I was proud. I still am." The words landed like stones in still water, rippling through the room. For the first time, I felt the weight of their eyes shift not to judge, but to see. I stood taller, not because I needed their approval, but because someone from their world had finally looked at mine. Nathan's words hung in the air like a sudden crack of thunder, silencing the clinking glasses and murmured chatter at Patterson's Steakhouse. "That's Madison Lane, co-founder and COO of Core Map, one of the fastest-growing AI logistics companies on the West Coast," he said, his voice calm but unyielding. "She's not just impressive, she's respected, she's fair, and she's the reason I took this job." Every head turned, some toward me, some toward Jenna, whose face drained of color, her fork frozen on her plate. Nathan didn't flinch. "You talk about family like it never changes, but real family evolves, learns, includes. Madison didn't walk away. You pushed her out. And even then, she built something the rest of us now benefit from, including me. He sat down, and the room felt different, not shattered, but bent, like heat rising off pavement. The silence wasn't empty. It was heavy with truth, settling like dust in sunlight. My mother's hands still clutched the envelope with the Alaska tickets. Her eyes locked on me, wide and brimming, as if seeing me for the first time. Dad, usually quick with a quip, sat still, his wine glass untouched, his armor of sarcasm nowhere to be found. Jenna stared into her water, her jaw tight, her boys squirming beside her, sensing the shift adults refused to name. No one laughed at Dad's earlier jab. No one moved. I felt the weight of their gazes, not as judgment, but as a reluctant acknowledgement. I didn't need their applause, I'd built my life without it, but Nathan's words had cracked open a door they'd long kept shut. I stood there, steady, my navy suit a quiet declaration of the woman I'd become, not the girl they'd erased. I didn't stay long. I just wanted to see you smile, I said softly to Mom, squeezing her hand before turning to leave. My heels echoed on the tile, not loud but unmistakable. Each step a reminder that I wasn't invisible. No one called after me, and that was okay. I'd come to be seen, not to beg. Back at the hotel, I ordered grilled salmon and opened my laptop, diving into Q2 forecasts and municipal contracts. Work was my anchor, steady and real. Then, at 9:40 p.m., the hotel phone rang. The clerk said a woman was asking for me, her voice soft. Mom. She stood at my door, clutching a plastic container wrapped in a dish towel, her signature lemon squares, uneven and dusted with cracked sugar. She hesitated, unsure if she was welcome. I let her in. She looked around my sparse hotel room, noting the clean lines and lack of clutter, and said I'd always liked tidy spaces. I smiled and said she'd always liked sugar. We didn't talk about the dinner, not yet. Instead, we spoke of Alaska, the quiet cruise, the sky alive with light. She asked about Core Map, my team, the work. Her questions tentative but genuine. Her voice dropped as she admitted she hadn't realized how much I'd carried all these years. No one asked, I said. Not to wound, but to be honest. She nodded, not arguing, just accepting. She said they'd tried to keep me small to understand me better, and called it a mistake. I didn't rush to forgive, but I didn't push her away. When she asked to visit Seattle, I said yes. 4 days later, Jenna called. Her voice was unsteady, no pleasantries. Nathan had told her everything, not just what he'd said at the dinner, but how I carried myself at work, leading with grace under pressure. It shook her. She'd seen me as stubborn, not strong, my leaving as abandonment, not survival. She confessed to resenting me for changing while she stayed still. You're not small, I told her. You're still becoming. She exhaled, letting go of something heavy. She said Mom wanted to visit, and maybe she did too. I said they were welcome. Before hanging up, she whispered she was proud not just of my success, but of how I'd never made her feel less, even when she'd tried to erase me. Back in Seattle, an envelope waited at my hotel's front desk, my name in Dad's firm handwriting. Inside, a single page. You turned out different than I expected. Maybe better. I don't know how to apologize for underestimating you, but your mother says you're building something real. I believe her. No signature, no warmth, but no denial. For him, that was enough. I'd shown up not for their forgiveness, but to prove I'd never left. And in that moment, their silence broke, just enough to let me breathe. 5 years later, I stood on my patio in Marin County, string lights glowing against the dusk, soft jazz weaving through the air. My new home, tucked at the edge of the redwoods, Smelled of eucalyptus and salt, its floors creaking just right. Mom's 65th birthday was different. Jenna brought a cake, Nathan ran a slideshow, and Dad sat quietly in the corner, watching. He handed me an old photo of me at 10, building a company from shoeboxes, with smart moves scrawled in red marker. On the back, he'd written, "Turns out, you always knew." We weren't enemies, not quite family, but two people finally seeing each other. I didn't come back for forgiveness, I came to prove I'd never left. Have you ever stood your ground to rewrite your story? Drop one word in the comments that captures your fight. Subscribe, like, and share for more stories of resilience and truth.